2,000. She's guessing on 2,000, which is not a bad guess. Anybody else want to guess? How many soldiers? Dominic, if you're awake. He's not. So how many, Cody?
I'm gonna guess like 200 maybe.
Okay, 200. Anybody else want to guess? How many of the 2,000 men fighting the Battle of Kings Mountain are British?
No.
One. 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 Okay? Think about that. So of the more than 2,000 men fighting in that battle, only one is a British soldier. So what do you have here? What do you have in this battle? Colonist versus colonist. Brother versus brother. So what you really have here is the Battle of Kings Mountain is simply a sneak preview of American history 80 years later, which was what?
Civil War.
Civil War. You had brother against brother, family against family, fighting at this Battle of Kings Mountain in North Carolina. There was one British soldier fighting in the whole thing. You have your first, quote, Civil War battle 80 years prior to the Civil War. That's how tough things were in the South. That is how tough things were in the South. Okay, last thing we'll get a start on today, and we won't finish, but we'll get a little start on it, is colonial prisoners of war. This might surprise you. We've talked about troops being taken, haven't we, on both sides? We've talked about 5,000 troops that were lost where? Savannah, Georgia, was that it, or was it the other one? Charleston, South Carolina. Where?
Charleston.
Charleston, right? We talked about American surrender of 5,000 troops. Where did those 5,000 American troops go? So that's what we talk about. We talk about colonial prisoners of war. Now, I'm not going to talk about the British so much. I'm going to talk about what happened to American prisoners of war, but it was similar. So, as the Revolutionary War rages in the South, thousands of colonial soldiers are being held prisoner of war, already caught during the conflict, right? There's been American soldiers captured from every battle of the Revolutionary War. Lexington and Concord. I mean, you name them all. Saratoga. There have been colonial prisoners of war taken in every battle, as there has been British prisoners of war. But we're talking about colonial. Where are they putting these guys? Anybody know? Where have all these prisoners of war going?
On a boat back in England.
What'd you say?
On a boat back in England.
You're halfway right.
On a boat.
On a boat. They have 16 retired British warships that are docked in harbors. And they're docked in the East River, which is by what state? Not state yet, but colony. New York. So there are 16 retired British warships, which means they don't use them anymore. There's 16 of these docked in the East River by New York. They have taken the masts down, the canvas, the rigging, everything's stripped. They've taken the gun ports where the cannons were sticking out of and sealed them shut. So they've taken down the top, basically the top of the boat. What you have is a floating basement, kind of. You see what I'm saying? Okay? So there are 16 retired British warships. They're anchored in the East River, and their masts and their canvas and their riggings have all been stripped, and those gun ports, which used to have cannons sticking out of them, have been sealed shut. Now, during the time that these were used as warships, they held about 350 men during the time that they were warships. So they're using these warships to store what? Prisoners of war. You know how many they're putting on each warship? 1,400. So a boat that was made for 350 men are now packed with as many as 1,400 prisoners. And where are they all at? Below deck. Now, because of security reasons, no men were allowed to assist the prisoners. They just sat down there and rotted, basically. There was only one individual that was allowed to see the prisoners and bring them food, supplies, and some comfort. And that was a gal by the name of Elizabeth Virgin. She was a humanitarian who had gained the trust of the British who were guarding these prisoner of war ships, and they would let Elizabeth Virgin, a humanitarian, come in and bring the prisoners a small amount of food, bring them a few supplies they needed, and give them some comfort. The supply they need might be a book. She might bring them a book to read, you know what I mean? Something. Can you imagine what it'd be like to be in the bottom of one of these ships 24/7? Well, Elizabeth Virgin is allowed to see the prisoners and bring food, supplies, and comfort these men. I'll tell you how she helps the cause and what the conditions were like for those men tomorrow. Okay? It's not, you're going to be going, oh my God, I wish I wasn't a prisoner of war in the Revolutionary War. Okay? All right, fine job.